What is going on, everyone? It is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, and I'm talking about Bioshock the Collection today and why it hasn't included Bioshock 2 multiplayer. Isn't it great to talk about different games? The question for today's video is, what do you think about the fact that Bioshock Collection has not included the multiplayer online mode from Bioshock 2? Let me know in the comments below. But today I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are in terms of the exclusion and why I think it's not all gloom and doom, and to be honest, why it's probably okay that Bioshock 2 multiplayer was excluded. First of all, if you want to play Bioshock 2 multiplayer, go play it. It's literally on Steam now. I understand that when a game gets re-released or remastered, that there is a new surge in the community and more people are playing it, which means that if Bioshock the Collection had Bioshock 2 multiplayer, then there would be many more people playing it as opposed to the number of people that are playing Bioshock 2 multiplayer now, which, to be honest, probably wouldn't be any at all. So while I do understand that argument, you can still play the game now online and you can still play it with friends, so the experience is still there. But secondly, I want to talk about why it was excluded and why I'm okay with it. First of all, let me actually preface this by saying, you guys know me, I'm a huge Bioshock fan. I got all the achievements for Bioshocks 1, 2, and Infinite, and yes, that includes all the achievements, those tedious fucking achievements that came along with Bioshock 2's multiplayer. Myself and a friend who are in Australia literally couldn't find any games for Bioshock 2 multiplayer when we tried to play it, and this was years ago. We would have to wait until 2 AM or 3 AM in the morning to try and actually find people to play, because literally no one in Australia or Asia Pacific was playing this game online. So it was so hard and so difficult for us to get all these achievements for Bioshock 2 multiplayer. But nevertheless, we had a great time. We found something in this game mode that we really did love. And yes, it was tedious to get the achievements. And yes, it took a long time. And yes, it was a big grind. But nevertheless, we still had a bunch of fun. And there was a lot of enjoyment to be had in that multiplayer mode. So this is coming from someone that actually really enjoyed that mode. Many people didn't. I did. And I'd happily play it again. However, what we need to bear in mind is that Bioshock is not a multiplayer game. Many people in the past used to decry games that were predominantly known as single player games and then came out with a multiplayer mode. Whether it was Bioshock, whether it was Assassin's Creed, many other examples in the games industry, people like their single player games, and that's okay. Not every game needs a multiplayer mode. Have a look at Wolfenstein and how great that game did, even though it was purely a single player, narrative driven game such as Bioshock. And unfortunately, those types of games are slowly dying out in the games industry. There has been a relative upsurge recently in those types of games. Again, Wolfenstein is an example. But you've even had Ken Levine, who was the creator of Bioshock and now is no longer working on the franchise. He himself has stated that these types of games are dying down in the industry. And because of that, it's nice to see that there are still games that can come out as purely single player narrative games that sell well, that do well, and that people can enjoy, because we just like sometimes playing single player games and not playing online with other people. That gets really competitive and really stressful at times. And that's how Bioshock started. The original Bioshock, which really set the standard for this series, was a single player game, and it did that beautifully. The execution was absolutely phenomenal, and people loved that game for the single player. Now, Bioshock 2 is not loved as much. I still don't understand why. I think it's just because it's compared to harshly when compared to either Bioshock 1 or Bioshock Infinite, because those games are just on another level. So it's very hard to compare a game like Bioshock 2, which in and of itself, it's still a great game, and I will debate people to the death on that point. However, one of the less enjoyed features of that particular game was the multiplayer. Unfortunately, that was the case. Initially, I was part of that group that didn't want to see multiplayer included in Bioshock, because I know how effective it can be as a single player experience. Now, when I did play it, I was proven wrong, and I'm glad I gave it a chance, and I hope that other people would have given it a chance, but I can understand why people didn't want this game, which they loved as a single player narrative game, to have some of its focus diverted away to a multiplayer experience, because that is how it always goes. A developer only has so many employees, so if a game tries to include a multiplayer online mode, a number of its employees are going to have to shift focus to work on that mode. They might hire more people, but that's not typically how the games industry works. It's all about opportunity cost. The more people are working on Bioshock 2 multiplayer, the less people that are working on the single player experience. So I can understand from that perspective why people just didn't like Bioshock 2's multiplayer and why they would rather see it excluded. And that takes me to Bioshock the Collection. The same argument applies here. Bioshocks 1, 2, and Infinite have all been remastered for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and at least for PC, Bioshocks 1 and 2 have been remastered. So you would have had a bunch of employees under 2K working on these remasters, and they probably would have been confronted with the question, do we also spend some time and resources and employees, and yes, at the end of the day, money, to work on remastering the Bioshock 2 multiplayer, a feature that wasn't really played much, a feature that wasn't really critically acclaimed, and a feature that overall people unfortunately didn't really enjoy, and you can then easily see why the decision was made. First of all, they had to focus on remastering the single player experiences of Bioshocks 1, 2, and Infinite, which again has always been the focus of these games, and it's what makes Bioshock Bioshock, and they didn't want to divert resources to focus on this multiplayer experience, and if they wanted to hire additional employees, that's money out of their pockets, and in any event would still mean less time and effort and focus being placed on remastering the main aspects of this game. And you know what it would also mean as well? If they released Bioshock 2 multiplayer as part of the Bioshock the Collection, they would have to have server support, they would have to have ongoing support with the online aspect to make sure it doesn't crash, all this stuff that goes along with your typical online multiplayer games. They would have to have expended even more focus into ensuring that that was right. And again, taking it back to the point, this is a feature that not many people played, and to be honest, probably not many people would play it even if it was coupled with Bioshock the Collection. I would love nothing more, honestly, to be able to play Bioshock 2 again with a renewed community, with more people playing these games, and to be able to enjoy those experiences that I did enjoy, although they were tedious at times, with Bioshock 2's multiplayer. However, I love the Bioshock games, and the main reason I love them is because they're a single player narrative experience. You cannot deny that about those games, and if it meant that not working on Bioshock 2 multiplayer would result in a better remaster for Bioshocks 1, 2, and Infinite, then I'm certainly okay with that, and I can't see many people being able to disagree with that point. But regardless, I would love to hear your alternative points of view in the comments below. Let me know again what you think about Bioshock 2 multiplayer being excluded from Bioshock the Collection. I would love to hear your thoughts, and until next time, this has been A Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and as always, keep fighting the good fight.